Hello, welcome to Follow Everton. You've seen me a couple times today already, but Basil, there's some breaking news. It might be, in a slow news day, you check your phone. There's a group text that's pinged 45 times from Abdru Mabs. And you're like, you know what? I'm just gonna deal with this later. I've got shit to do. And then you go, oh, I really should have read that and stopped working for this. And then the news was what? Sean Dyche is no longer in charge, and we've got a really new look. We've got a bearded man in charge, but we have a long flowing Beatles type looking character in our own left back of years gone past, so the Moyes era. Leighton Baines in charge. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, as you alluded to there, I wasn't really in the moment this afternoon when this was all unraveling. I was actually at work and I had my headphones in. All I got was the beeping of mostly Mabsy and the team just like exchanging messages, but actually couldn't work out from the messages what was going on. It was like this will be good. They weren't enough to actually tell me that we changed managers. I actually had no idea till. So a bit later, and then at that point, yeah, it was a bit of a surprise to hear that Everton had sacked Dyche 3 hours before the game. I mean, I wasn't that surprised that he's been fired, but the fact that it came so close to the game was a little bit of a shock. But yeah, I mean, do you want me to talk about who was put in charge, or more about Dyche and that side of it?
Or I guess we can. I'm sure we'll talk a whole lot over the next few shows on these pieces, but at least at the beginning, like, how do you? I mean, I know you haven't been on the recent shows on Dyche as much, but are you happy he's gone? Are you relieved? Are you? Did you want to say goodbye to a manager, or you just move on and be done and look for pastures green, or
Yeah,
slightly more positive than what we've had?
yeah, I think there's a lot to unravel with this, and I think there's more to unravel with this than there is in the actual game that we saw, which lacked a lot of
Mm-hmm.
entertainment. But in regards to Dyche, well, I was on the post match after Bournemouth at the weekend, and I said to Ryan, I just don't see how he can stay because Everton are just incapable of doing anything going forward, let
Mm-hmm.
alone scoring a goal. And yeah, the fact it unraveled and half a week went by and nothing happened, it just made you think, no, it's not going to happen. And it did happen. I was just a bit surprised at how late it was. But yeah, generally, I would have liked to have seen Daesh given a bit more good circumstances and then judged him. But at the same time, in the position we were in, that was not going to come quick. He'd gone
Mm-hmm.
rather stale. We weren't scoring any goals, let alone winning any games, and probably was the right call. But time will tell as to see what manager, because obviously, well, Potter's gone already to West Ham
Mm-hmm.
yesterday, so we've got a few choices, but we'll have to see what happens there and whether this. We're not going to know how this plays out until we see the rest of the season.
Yeah, and it sounds like well, for those that haven't watched, and I'm due for a rewatch once I get some bit more shut eye here. Corey and a few others, I think Mabs and Chad, maybe that was the three of
Maybe
them,
Stevie,
but
I
at least
think.
and Stevie. So at least Corey put together an excellent rundown of the different managers that were available. I think they started with Graham Potter,
Yeah.
and I have to go. I don't want to detract from that. I think that's its own content there. But for the managers to look at, that would be an excellent place for you guys to start because I'm a little
Yeah.
bit behind on it, honestly. But I do know Potter is signed for West Ham. He's off the table, and it seems, at least for right now, Fenerbahce have a long term contract with Jose Mourinho. So unless that gets ripped up in the immediate future, he seems relatively set in place unless Everton throw a lot of money at him and Fenerbahce like move away. It has to be someone else. And we've seen a lot of David Moyes conversation. It wouldn't surprise me if it's a Coleman, Baines, and Moyes patchwork job
Hmm.
to the end of the year. And that only works if we played better today, but I don't think we played outstanding. And it's a good thing that Peterborough weren't up to the races either, because if that's the squad and the way we play throughout the rest of the season, I'm still not sure it's enough. But against an out of a low confidence Peterborough side, it was tonight.
Yeah, I mean, uh, it's yet to be seen what's going to happen. For me, it can only really be Moyes at this point. I just don't see any other viable short term realistic solutions. I need to watch that video as well. It did sound rather intriguing.
Hmm.
But as you say, the Moyes and the Coleman Baines little trio, it's the sort of romantic love story. But yeah, I'm not sure it's the right thing going forward. And also you've got to look at it and see Everton moving into the new stadium, and would that provide
Hmm.
stability? Is that the romantic? That's part of the romance. The fact Moyes gets to go back into probably one of his more favourable clubs and see them into the new stadium.
So I think I've got a different perspective on this romanticism here. I think they're going to fill the void that Dyche was meant to do of get us over the line, at least come 17th, if not, 12th or somewhere passable and acceptable. The higher up, of course, the more millions of pounds you get, while also being on is this the final year of FFP and deciding when to get the right manager in for a long term contract. I don't think that should be Moyes. I don't think that should be Baines. But if it's simply a patchwork to get us over the line of these stalwarts of the club that of those that grew up similar age to us, Basil, like we're grew up in the 90s where Moyes was what we saw. We saw champions. They glimmered with Champions League football. Some components of Europe. We were playing competitive, and that's the Everton that I know of. A lot of others know along a broader era, but this is the era that I grew up on. Is the, let's say, late noughties and early 2010s. That's the
Mm,
identity of Everton. You've got a lot of those people available to us on a temporary basis. But long term, do I want Moyes? No, I think we need to go somewhere different because it's a slight improvement of what we've seen. But Moyes doesn't seem to be inspiring a lot of enthusiasm from the fans of West Ham, for example. Yes, they got a result in Europe, but they haven't been pulling up trees either. So I think we want something bigger and better. But the Friedkins are really good actually at picking these, and sometimes it can backfire. We had Alessandro De Rossi, who they sacked, and then it caused an uproar. So you put in the likes of Moyes, you put in the likes of Baines and Coleman. If you get rid of them, what happens to us as fans when that happens? So there's a risk.
mm. Yeah, yeah. I just don't know about the argument about long term and short term, because I'd love Everton to have a long term strategy, and I believe that he's been sacked now in the early part of January in a sort of, I think they've taken a couple of days and they've gone, well, either do it now, well, there's a bit of a week's break apart from this match, and we allow him to have some players, possibly one or two players, and
Hmm.
get a bit of time to work with them, or they don't sack him. And I think they've just gone and done that for basically because of the window. But I don't
Hmm.
think there is such thing as long term anymore. I mean, you look at how many manager changeovers there is in the Premier League these days. Most managers don't last more than 2-3 seasons. So uh, Moyes, yeah, will he last 2-3 seasons? He could last 2 seasons, but yeah, I wouldn't personally think he would be the one to take you forward dramatically.
Hmm.
If you wanted a stable option who would see you through, the evidence would suggest that Dyche probably would have seen you through to the end based on the
Hmm.
points we have to now and the rest of the season. I think we would have just scraped across the line with about 40 points. I think they think they can do better than that. And I think they hear the rumblings from the fans about the style of play and the lack of enjoyment and all the rest of it. And I think they've thought we can surely do better. Someone can do better with this mop of players. They are not amazing players by no means, but someone can definitely do something tactically to get them firing for at least 6 months.
Yeah, and I think that that conversation, I get your point. We have a lot of managers will get sacked if because it's a results oriented business. But if you want to truly change a philosophy, either you say someone that gets along with Kevin Thelwell, because as of right now he's still in his position. So you want somewhat is the philosophy of the Friedkins, is it aligned with what we see out of Kevin Thelwell, and irrespective then of the coach, whoever comes in can continue um, the philosophy and the hiring strategy. And we don't have a mixture of Ashley Young and a Mikalenko and a Patterson as fullback options. Those are three drastically different player profiles. And if you bring players up through the youth, you know what? I love seeing Roman Dixon, but is the next player actually a Roman Dixon that bombs on and overlaps, or is it something different? So you want to see a certain style of player and position and how to play football in all facets of how we recruit, how we train, we develop. That's part of why you don't want to just keep changing managers and let them pick and choose, because that's where we're at. But if it's the manager who has to come in and match the philosophy of the club, then it's just being selective on who you bring in temporarily or until they get sacked, basically. But let's
Yeah,
maybe go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, no, I know exactly what you're saying, and ideally you want, yeah, you want. Yeah. I think the way management has gone these days is that the manager has to be able to adapt to the players that get presented. I think the turnover's too quick, and I think they have to come in and make it work. And I think what Dyche failed to do, that what a manager has to be able to do in this sort of modern day football, is get results from the team, even when you've got a few injuries. And you've got to change your tactics and find other ways of winning. And when you can't do that, you're one dimensional, you become entirely predictable, which I'm going to come on to when we talk about the game. But and then it just goes stale as it did. But yeah, I'm sure we can dive. We should probably be diving into the game a little bit.
Yeah. So we'll start with that, and we can talk broadly, but I also can bring up various statistics or player ratings and everything else from SofaScore at some point. So, did you want to start us off with, I guess, your overall thought of the match, and then we can go into more specifics?
The match was a bit drab. I thought it was a bit of a hard watch. I think it probably was possibly even harder at Goodison. I mean, I don't know what the crowd. Well, it'd be interesting to get Ryan's opinion on the crowd. I could hear Peterborough's fans through the BBC. I don't know if they were messing with the volume, but I don't know. It seemed to go a bit quiet. But Everton didn't exactly give much for the crowd to latch onto. It really was few and far between opportunities in that first half. I think Everton took about 20 minutes to get a cross in from Patterson, which was a decent cross to get a corner. I mean, we're going on scraps here, really. There was a shot from Mangala, which hit the bar. That was a good effort. And then there was the goal. Apart from that, not a lot. But I think you've got to, in terms of overall thoughts, I think you've got to discuss the aspect that the team was not picked by the interim managers and the effect that might have had or didn't have. But generally, the game was a bit stale. Peterborough matched us quite well for a League One opposition, and I think the stats reflect in possession. We didn't really have much more of the ball than them. We weren't really much more positive than them.
Yeah.
So I didn't see an awful lot, but I don't want to criticize it. I'm not going to criticize the managers for that. I'm just going to criticize sort of, well, I don't know who I can point the fingers at. Just the general Everton. It's just where we're at.
So it seems like there's quite a mixed perspective from the comments as well. I know Duggan is just so enthusiastic to see change, and I'm excited for that too. What I will say, it seems like there's some commentary that Dyche chose the squad, but if I was to pick a starting lineup for today, I'm not sure I'd ask for much more. Yes, you'd say, do we need to bring Michael Keane in? Probably not. But we saw Jake O'Brien, we saw Patterson starting, we saw Armstrong starting, and Brozier and Beto starting. So very quickly we saw quite a few players that we want to see in our squad. Ellerman and Jai was on the pitch. We rested Tarkovsky, who I think it's a perfect time to give him a break. Ashley Young was on the bench. So we rested up some key players while giving players that need more opportunities for first team exposure, like the likes of O'Brien and Armstrong. They had their chances. And then what we then would have to say is, how did some of these players do that don't get much opportunity? I think defensively, we looked quite comfortable for the most part. They only had maybe 2 or 3 half chances, in all honesty. They weren't even really testing the keeper. There was that corner that it went to the back post that was it Cillian Jones or someone the one who basically Patterson wiped out in the second half, and he was like numberless because he had his backup shirt was missing. He had a strike that was but it was blocked. Even that their best chance was basically blocked by both Jake O'Brien and Branthwaite in the first half. And if that's their best chance, they didn't really do a whole lot. And the one thing I will say, even against poor opposition, very seldom does Dyche win the possession game. Today we won 54 46, and that doesn't make you an effective squad, or like that doesn't mean you win, but that's something a little different than just playing low block against everyone. Even against poor opposition, Dyche doesn't normally win possession football, and we looked very comfortable at the back with Jake O'Brien. Michael Keane can dish out a ball quite comfortably, but he wasn't that involved. So Jake O'Brien and Branthwaite were very comfortable today, which was a good positive for me.
Yeah, I did like the performances from quite a few of the players. I mean, there was nothing exceptional, but I love that Jake O'Brien and Branthwaite. It's been a long day. They I did like their performances either side of Michael Keane. I mean, you can argue till the cows come home about whether a back three is right for us or a back five or whatever you want to call it, or we should stick with a back four, which we've been effective when defending. But you've got to judge it based on who you're playing against at the same time. So you argue that we're playing against Peterborough in League One. You want to play this back three, push your fullbacks high, tell them they don't need to defend. I imagine that was sort of the strategy. Like, you only need three at the back because they're only going to play on the counter attack. And when you're in the build up, you can kind of adapt your formation, get behind the ball, and not let them through. But when you've got the likes of Mikalenko as your attacking left wing back, I find it really hard to play the system. I understand that Ndai and you can get him into more central areas, but you need a left back that's going to bomb on. If you're going to play this system, you got to have a better option than that. Even Ashley Young would have been more sensible for a bit of dynamism at 39 years old. But I did like, I didn't mind the centre backs' performances. But there's so many problems. As I said, the fullback problem, but you've also got the midfield problem. So you're playing two in the midfield, and those two who are not capable really of distributing the ball quickly and kind of precisely and through the lines. Everything's a little bit too slow. Everything doesn't kind of go in the right places. There was one good ball from Gay. It went over the top and it made a chance. And then you've got this front three, and you got Harrison Armstrong, who's made his first start and got man of the match. Now he's played in that advanced role because of the formation. It's pushed him out to almost like a wing role. That's not his position. And I think you saw from the goal that he's most effective when he can kind of look up and get thread the pass or create opportunities. And to have him sort of, I just felt like that wasn't the strongest thing, and it left Beto isolated and Dye coming short. Beto up against three defenders. So tactically, when I describe it like that, to me it was a mess. But if we'd played a back four, I don't know what I'd be saying. Probably that we still couldn't break them down. Not much else. So I don't know. What did you think about it? Did you think this was Dyche's desperate ditch attempt to save his job, or?
So from a formation and selection standpoint, yes. I think Mr. Blue Skies brings up a very relevant point here. So you were saying it was really boring, turgid football, but there was a positive. Compared to the other matches, we didn't just like hoof it long and give the ball away very often. Instead, what you often ended up seeing was Branthwaite and O'Brien on the ball and looking for, and when you see like them pull their hand towards like someone come to it and break the lines, there wasn't a whole lot of that piece, but they weren't just aimlessly hoofing it just to give the ball back because they're comfortable defending and being in shape. So they were trying, although struggled, as we know they do. Like we've watched them try and break down United or break down anyone, and you're like, geez, we just can't. We can't score. We don't know how to pass. Like it, there's no opportunity here. So what it did seem today was Beto was able to time his runs a little better. There were some crosses from the likes of Patterson that were actually quite good. Armstrong had one. Branthwaite had one. Mikalenko was bombing on. Iris Cross is great, no, but if you keep crossing, they're in just enough of a position where they could do something. He's sitting in the back post. There's opportunities to score. Beto had a few headers, but the question, were we excellent? No, not by a long shot. And I'm worried that even this same team, even with the tactics we saw today, could get us relegated. It's at least a different. We're willing to shake things up, and a manager replacement or an instilled confidence and a new set of drills with Seamus and Leighton Baines when whatever manager comes in will make a whole lot of difference. But I wasn't overtly impressed. I will say though, Harrison Armstrong was, especially for being in a right attacking midfield spot, was probably. I think he's meant to be an attacking midfielder, but I've used to seeing him. I like him more centrally normally, but I think he did quite well in that spot for his kind of first time up. Do you agree?
Yeah, I thought he did do well. I just thought he was limited by the fact that when he was receiving the ball, he was already sort of with a defender around him, and I thought like the goal comes out of him kind of just dropping off a little bit. Patterson
Mm-hmm.
making the overlapping run and him able to thread a really good pass. And it was a really good pass because there's a lot of defenders in his line of sight
Yeah.
to get that through ball. I think it's exactly what you want to see when you've got Beto on the pitch. Is that running behind me? Beto's fast, Beto's strong, Beto's used to going around the keeper. But what we've not done with Beto is actually use him properly in the last 18 months. It's difficult when you're up against Peterborough or anybody who comes to Goodison and sits quite deep to find those pockets of space, and that's what we did in the goal.
Yeah.
And it
Well,
wouldn't have
I thought
happened
you
without
said we
Harrison.
played poor. I thought you said we played poorly today and you weren't impressed, but then you
We're just
liked
with
the way we scored those opportunities. Yes, it
yeah.
wasn't frequent enough, but we did things that we have not done in recent games. We had through balls, we had Armstrong holding the ball, thinking about it instead of just giving the ball away. Patterson doing overlapping runs, and it allowed, and Beto had timed run in the channel that scored. So even if it wasn't common, that to me is a real positive.
I think the problem is the manager went. I thought the shackles would be off a little bit. I thought I'd see a little bit more, something more in the final third. The quality of the ball is not good. It's not going to change overnight, and I think just the level of opposition. I'm judging it off the level of opposition. I'm sure if Ryan comes in on this stream, he'll say, "Oh, it was only Peterborough. We should be dominating the game regardless of who's in charge and whatever." But that's kind of where I'm leaning towards. Some people might say, "Oh, well, at least you got to build from where we were at, which was dogged the last sort of 4, 5, 6 weeks, never, let alone you could argue months." So yeah, you're right. Maybe we should look at some of these positives, and that these are the elements you've got to think when you're choosing a manager. What sort of manager is appropriate? Moyes likes to play his little triangles. Maybe something like that's appropriate. But I think like Moyes and Coleman and Baines, they're all used to playing the 4-2-3-1. It's quite a stale, quite a rigid formation. So do you want that sort of tactically, or do you want somebody who's going to philosophy of this 3-3-5-2? Or I think we've got to view it that way a little bit as well when we're choosing the next manager. But yeah, you're right, there was glimpses. I'm not going to deny there were glimpses of positivity, but a lot of the game was boring and they were struggling to find a way through.
So, to Roy's point, I'm not, and I was kind of being a devil's advocate to Basil because you were feeling like we're just doing. It was boring. It was turgid. It's kind of the same old. I wasn't impressed, and yeah, I wasn't thoroughly impressed. I was still bored, but you know what? We tried something a little different. There was a different strategy of how we're going to go forward, and that's what I was taking the positives out of. And Beto, for once, timed his runs and was composed by foot around the goal mouth.
Mm.
That's a positive. We can still say, yeah, we should be smashing Peterborough, but you know what? Both squads are lacking confidence. It was a confusing night, I'm sure, for the players and how to kind of get settled. The fans weren't sure how to react, and the whole thing was sort of tepid. And even the likes of, I think Jared Branthwaite won that penalty, which calmed nerves, but there was a lot of just what is Everton right now? And cool, we saw Patterson, we saw Armstrong, we saw Beto and Njai, but the reality is, do we have you're talking about the midfield, for example. Mangala is comfortable in possession. He's not always breaking the lines, but can take a strike. Ghana Gay seems a few steps off it this year compared to where he was at the end of last season, where he was scoring goals and was doing little things up front, winning the ball back in key areas. So I'm just desperate for the likes of Eric Boonham to come back in that squad,
Yeah,
or James Garner. But
James
honestly,
Brown.
Eric Boonham next to Oro Mangala, and then you have this same setup, and maybe you put McNeil in the left wing back spot, and I feel very differently about how this team would be playing.
Yeah, if you've got like Irabugam and Mangala, you could argue you've got two destructive players in there, but then they're probably not going to progress the ball for you. But they could sit and progress, and you could have someone like Harrison Armstrong in that CDM role, who's probably got an eye for a pass, a bit of
Yep.
creativity, or someone with a bit more energy, even like Undai as a free role. There's so many ways you could try, isn't there? There's a
Mm.
comment from Mr. Blue Skies. Not to harp on about negativity, but Everton, look, it's a positive time because Everton it's exciting for us. We have the chance to improve what we've been doing. Everton fans will hope they can see better football. But yeah, we've got to pick up on things that need to be improved if we're going to get there. And I agree with Mr. Blue Skies that the pressing was not quite right a lot of the time, and that will. I don't know whether that comes down to what Dyche has done, or whether that's Baines and Coleman what they've said. Because I imagine Baines and Coleman have told the team to press a bit more than
Mm-hmm.
Dyche would have done, and they've used that system and they've not practiced it. So it would have to be developed. But I agree, the pressing was lacking, and especially like near the end of the game when we were pressing in dribs and drabs and they could play around you. I think we made it easy for Peterborough to play football, and they moved it. They moved it all right. They didn't disgrace themselves at all, and that shouldn't be really the case.
Yeah. One thing else I wanted to bring up was, if we look at how the team set up, we know Mikalenko is more of a fullback than a wingback. So when we look at in the middle here, basically showing the different average player positions. So Mikalenko sat quite relatively advanced on that left side, but didn't bomb on as often. But we saw Nathan Patterson really took that side as his own. So really, what you ended up seeing was a wing back out of Patterson and a fullback that occasionally went forward. So it's more like a back four, and occasionally one would bomb on and give width. But do you think we'll see more of Patterson next week? Because this type of part of the pitch was exciting, even if was it Premier League standard? Oh, no, but that Patterson excites me from an attacking perspective to see this advanced position and taking up width and delivering crosses.
Yeah, I think Patterson has been a victim of the Dyche regime in some ways. I don't think Dyche really likes him. I think the last few times I've seen Patterson before tonight, I've kind of seen him once, then he's been out injured or he's not played for a month. So I've seen him in bits and bits and bobs. And every time I've seen him, I've thought he's just not up to it, which has disappointed me because Coleman and Young, and you think they're getting on. But every time I've seen Patterson, he's not really done anything to say I want to play him over the other two. But I think he was good tonight. I think he is better attacking. I think he's okay defensively. I thought on the Lampard he had a few decent runs in the team, but he needs to get match fitness and he needs to get match minutes before he ever looks convincing. He always looks a little bit lungy in a tackle and like he's gonna get beaten. I do like him going forward and he can put in a cross, but some of the crosses again were not that great from all the team tonight. There's some that overhit, quite a few overhit crosses from good positions. We do miss McNeil. There's a lot of players out. You've got to remember that we're missing players. The Mikalenko thing on the other side, it does make sense, but if you don't have a Dwight McNeil on that left wing to put that left-footed cross in or something, what do you do from that left side? If Ndai wants to tuck in, but Mikalenko won't really go forward, and when he does, he kind of turns and looks back. It's an alarm bell for me. But a lot like someone like Moyes will probably want to play with one fullback attacking, But what would be ideal is like when we played with Moyes, we had Coleman and Baines. One went forward, the other
Right.
one would sit back. Whereas we don't have that option. You only got one who could go forward really and offer anything. So
Yeah. What you would want really is McNeil in the Mikalenko position or something. But the
yeah, but
problem
I
is
think look at
then you don't trust him defensively.
I don't mind McNeil defensively, but I think he's our this season he's probably been our most productive player. I think the stats will tell you that for his minutes to production. I mean, he's been out a lot, so you'd have to look at that rather than overall numbers. But I think when he's played in the 10, not everyone likes him in the 10, and I don't necessarily love him in the 10, but I can't deny that he gets shooting opportunities. He scored goal and he can thread a pass through. So I think of a dire team, he's been the one standout in that position this year. So I wouldn't really want to move him as far back as left wing back or left back.
Yeah, and I guess that's what we're asking for then is okay. If we want McNeil to provide creativity, if you're truly saying you want someone bombing off and delivering from that left side, that's the way to do it. You want to have the Patterson equivalent on delivery. He doesn't have the pace and he doesn't have the overlap potential though. So I think that's something to be cautious on. That clearly he's not going to. He isn't Patterson, but he can deliver on the left. And we know when he's in the 10, we have some scoring. He creates scoring opportunities and he can strike a ball. So I guess that's where you may detract from it because he has to be more positionally disciplined if he's in that spot. For those, and I know Peter brought this up, but if people are interested in probably doing a bit of a phone in or reaction, it's a big moment for a lot of Everton fans, either relief, uncertainty. I've added, if you were interested in jumping on and adding a couple minutes of your thought here, we've put a link down for you to join Basil and I. But if not, we're happy to keep talking about the match as well. But thought I would just put that here so that's available at the bottom if anyone wants to join on. But let's say, so we know we're worried about the wing-back situation if we play in this formation. Would you prefer this with the current squad we have to a back four? I'll start with that.
No, not without a left wing back solution. You'd say McNeil, right? If you were going to play this moving forward in the left wing back, which is an option.
Or Ashley Young to me is the other option.
Ashley Young would probably be my option there.
Or Jack Harrison as the left-footed player that plays defensive.
Yeah,
maybe.
You're getting into the realms of we're not England, but England kind of went this way halfway through the last tournament, didn't they? They kind of didn't work as a back four. They tried the back three. They didn't have a left back, and they played Trippier as a defensive left back, but
he's also right-footed. That's the difference here, because Harrison and McNeil are both left-footed, and that was part of the problem. Is he had always cut into the middle because he wasn't comfortable on his left. That's the only saving grace on that to me.
Yeah, I'm just thinking how they got around that point, but they didn't have width on the left either. But they're just better quality players. It's probably not good to compare them. Yeah, I personally I think we'd go back to back four. I think I'd want to play maybe a deep lying destroyer in front of the back line, and then a couple of more creative or dynamic players as number 8s. And I'd tell them to make runs in behind, support the striker, make overlaps. Don't just sit and wait for the ball. It's all too static. It's all too predictable. Nobody makes an overlapping run. Nobody's afraid to beat a man. It's just too predictable for me until we kind of drill in a bit of philosophy about triangles, passing 1-2s, making overlaps, getting the ball, but also coaching in how to drop back and how we lose so many balls from set pieces. They nearly scored like 3 or 4 goals from counters.
Mikalenko scared me. Like that ball where he headed it, and then he just basically gave it to the opposition. And then the commentary over here said, "What a great tackle!" And you're like, "He's bloody lucky he had a recovery tackle. He'd be blamed like Decore was last week or 2 weeks ago." But we do have. Before we go on to more tactic chat, I'm sure we have one of our phone-in characters in Peter Duggan, who would be a perfect candidate to talk more on the football side. And he's brought his own. It's not a Carabao cup he's holding there? It's not a Carling Cup.
It's a
What's he got?
Carling
It's a
can,
Carling Cup. Yeah. Well,
yeah.
welcome back, Peter.
Yeah.
I see a very happy looking Duggan over here. So, how are you feeling about everything that's gone on today?
Yeah, much better, mate. I tell you, honestly, I think today what you saw was justification for Dyche's sacking, because with O'Brien and Patterson on that right hand side, mate, it just looks so much more balanced. It's so much better. Like with O'Brien and behind Patterson, he doesn't have to worry about defending, even though it's not his strength. You know what I mean? Defensively, he can do better, but he just needs a bit of supporting behind him. And O'Brien was that character for me, because honestly, I don't know why Dyche was willfully ignoring O'Brien. I mean, to be honest, I think the biggest justification in Dyche's sacking is the fact that he's willfully ignored O'Brien this long and forced Tarkowski to play through an injury. I mean, that's a sackable offence in itself. I can't believe that no one actually has been calling him out on that, because Tarkowski, mate, I tell you something, mate. I've been putting it in the comments. The last three games, 4 of the goals we've conceded have been his fault. I mean, the City game for starters. Where was he? You can blame Coleman as much as you want, but why is Branthwaite putting that block in to try and stop the goal? Where's Tarkowski? Where the hell is he? It's on his side of the pitch. He's the right centre half. The first goal we conceded against Forest. Why isn't he marking Chris Wood? You know what I mean? Why is he so far ahead of Chris Wood? He should be marking him. And the goal against Bournemouth, mate, to tell you what, some people, if you want to blame Mikalenko, that's fine, because I don't really know what he was doing for the goal. But I don't like, what pissed me off was how Dyche basically turned the narrative to blame Branthwaite for ducking, and he didn't even bother mentioning how Tarkowski wasn't even marking his man, and Patterson had to come off of marking his man to try and cover Tarkowski and lost out on the header, because he only realised like a second too late that that Tarkowski wasn't in position, and then Tarkowski failed to track back and block the player who crossed it in for the goal, and it's just poor. And like I say, today I thought everything looked much more balanced. I liked how we played out from the back a bit more. What couple of 1-2 touch passes and moving the ball around Peterborough's press. I mean, all right, fair enough. Peterborough's press wasn't exactly, a nasty, like, it wasn't a hard press. It wasn't pressing in numbers or anything, but the way we still played in and around them, I really like to see that. And I thought there's a lot more balance to this with Patterson in there. And even Mikalenko, mate. I mean, Mikalenko, I wasn't sure about him. I really wasn't. I was pretty much agreeing with Ryan on everything he said about him, but defensively, he can be relied on. But in terms of playing out from the back today, his final ball leaves little to be desired. I mean, he's not very good when he gets into the final third, but in the build-up play, getting out from the back, I thought he did all right today, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think what scared me was a couple, and just before you came on, Pete, I'm not sure if you heard that, but there was a couple, like, I think it was a free kick or a corner where Mikalenko was last man, and his headers, instead of just knocking it out or successfully clearing, just nodded it directly to the two on-rushing players, and we were very lucky to not have given those away. So in a way, I trust him, but in a way, he's also vulnerable to the same kind of scary mistakes that others do.
Yeah, he's a bit edgy, isn't he? Like, you can see why Ryan looks at him and says that he's a championship player. It's not hard to see that he's not. It's like watching. I mean, I don't know why Ryan compared him to Tony Hibbert. Thought that was harsh on Tony Hibbert. Tony Hibbert was a Premier League level player, mate, and Mikalenko's in and out. But like I say,
Tony Hibbert never scored, so.
Well, he did. It was just in a friendly.
It doesn't count in the Premier League.
It doesn't count unless it's in the Premier League. He came close, though. I remember that Man United game where we drew 4-4. He hit the bar with a cross, and the old pub went down on their knees because we all thought he'd scored, but it happens, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But I
we did riot when Mikalenko scored against... Oh, you go ahead.
Leicester.
No, go on.
When Mikalenko scored against Leicester, we rioted.
Yeah, you could probably pull that out, couldn't you? And say that he actually scored. That's the one thing he's got on Tony Hibbert. But No, I thought that today just much better. The build-up play from the back, everything about it was much better. I hear people saying, "Oh, well, we only played Peterborough." Mate, it doesn't matter. If we'd have been playing Peterborough under Dyche, we'd have still been playing hoofball and sitting 11 men behind the ball and the same rubbish we've been doing against all the other Premier League teams. It's just nonsense. It's just Dyche was the fundamental problem, mate. I mean, as I've highlighted for starters, willfully ignoring O'Brien, who looks like a good ball player. Willfully ignoring Patterson. I mean, I know that Patterson, he started off injured, but could Roman Dixon really not have played over it in that position over Young? I mean, could you not have moved Young to the left?
That's where I think we should have been doing.
Yeah, I mean, if we played that back three at the start of the season, what we should have done was we should have been playing O'Brien as the right centre-half. Could have played Keane over Tarkowski if Tarkowski was injured, because Keane, to be fair, I mean, he's someone you do worry about defensively, but from a technical standpoint, and I think you saw it there today, when he's on the ball, he's calm, he's composed, and when he's playing short passes, he's pretty good at it. His long balls are a bit dodgy, though. But one thing I'll say for Keane
that's what Tarky can do over O'Brien, maybe, is the long ball.
Well, yeah. One thing I've got to say for Keane, though, mate, he should have scored that corner from Harrison. If he catches that on the volley, he should be burying that, mate. That's something he's supposed to be good at. But I thought start of the season, if we'd have done that back three with O'Brien and Dixon on that right-hand side, maybe you could have played Ashley Young as the left wing-back and Mikalenko as the left centre-half while Branthwaite was injured. But, it is what it is. But I feel sorry for Broja, honestly. I mean, kicks the turf and then he gets, crippled by that challenge. And do you know what, mate? I feel that came from the referee. I don't know if anyone else noticed this, but during that game, I honestly thought the referee let a lot of really bad fouls go from Peterborough. I mean, there was loads of holding in the box and grabbing up. The penalty we got was one thing, but it was happening well before that. There was loads of grabbing hold and wrestling going on and pulling of the shirts and everything, and got away with mayhem in some cases. And Beto gets booked for kicking a ball away, and there were some fouls he gave against us that were a bit dodgy, like the one that got given against Young towards the end, where he took his hands off his back, and then the guy just goes down and gets a foul. I'm like, what's going on there?
I think my emotions towards her referee aren't as extreme if we're winning, and I didn't even notice it. I know that sounds tragic.
Well, yeah, it's one of them. If it doesn't cost you the game, you're not going to really highlight it. You're going to let that one slide.
Yeah. We're not going to do a Nottingham Forest tweet over it either, are we?
Oh God, mate, what the hell was that about? I mean, that was just stupid, that thing. But it's much better, I feel. And in terms of where we're going to go with a manager, I mean, I did mention in the comments section in the previous video, but I don't think it's going to happen. I mentioned Maurizio Sarri, and I didn't actually know this about Maurizio Sarri, but there's a stat about him that Carragher pointed out. Do you remember when Thomas Tuchel was appointed England manager? Jamie Carragher brought up stats of these managers, and he pointed out the top 10 managers with the best results in all of Europe over the last 10 years. Maurizio Sarri was on the list. And I actually found that quite an interesting stat for someone like him, because I thought, what's he ever won? He's never won any trophies, and yet somehow he's got all these results under his belt. And it's like, I mean, in fairness, it might have been due to the fact that he was managing the likes of Juventus and, Napoli. He even had good results at Chelsea, because if you're talking 10 years, that's during the time when he was manager of Chelsea as well. So he's obviously got a lot of good results under his belt, but I don't think he's going to come to us. It's most likely going to be Moyes. And I would take Moyes back, because I've never known Moyes to be a defensive manager like what Dyche is. Moyes plays high press. He did it with us when he first came in. He's always wanted to play pressing football because he says it's his style. Like when he first came into Everton, in his first stint with the club when he first came in, he had Carsley as the defensive midfielder in the... In the defensive midfield role, like the six, and he played like a 4-1-4-1 shape. And his whole idea was the striker gets up to the defender and puts the press on. Winger gets up to the defender, presses the fullback and presses the fullback. The reason why he had Carsley in the six, however, was because if a striker had drop off to try and receive the ball and show for it, he would have Carsley pick up the striker. Yeah. So that
not putting the centre backs out of position and
not pulling Alan Stubbs and Davy Weir out of position, because they were too slow. If they pressed and got caught out of position,
but that's what Ghana Gay's meant to do.
Yeah, that's kind of what you want Mangala and Gay doing. It doesn't matter who's playing as the defence. You could play a back three and do that with a with that sort of tactic with a defensive midfielder. But personally, I would make it Mangala because I see what you're saying about Idrissa Gay. But the problem with Idrissa Gay for me, from a technical standpoint, I don't think he's that good a player. But if he pushes forward and wins the ball back early, he could create a bit of chaos in the opposition's final third. And I'd settle for that because my dad was saying earlier today, the biggest benefit out of today in the change of shape, the change of, team selection, all that, it pushed us higher up the pitch. And because we were higher up the pitch, we win the ball back early, or we move the ball around our own half and actually create chances and break teams down by having players come to show for it, but just manipulate the ball around the opposition players, build triangles in and around the wide areas, spread the pitch a little bit and make it wider with wing backs.
And but I think you'd probably saw me, Sean. I'll bring this back because I want to bring Basil back into the conversation here for you guys, for me to listen in and be eager here. So what I was going to show was, see if I can get the images a bit better. So what we saw today was we had a back five with Patterson a lot more advanced. So this is just the average player positions. On the other side, we had Mikalenko, as we were saying, a bit past the halfway line, but really not bombing on to the touchline the way we saw Patterson do. So if we do play a back five, you'd expect if we have Patterson in that role, he's going to play advanced. We don't have someone that we're expecting to play as advanced on the left. We'll probably play a little bit more like what you see Aston Villa do, where you'll have Matty Cash bomb on, and you'll have like a sort of a back three or maybe a flat back four if we have Patterson in the squad. My question, that because we were talking to Basil here before, Basil feels that we had more of a balance in a way, playing with a back four, even if it's Patterson in that right back position. Is that kind of so? I think my guess is, Peter, you're thinking a back five, but Basil, why don't we start with you? How do you feel from what Peter's saying about, do we want to have a higher pressing setup, triangles, or even saying we want to play a bit more of the Moyes style, where we actually have more bodies further up and having one kind of float-in defender, let's say Idrissa Gay. He doesn't have the legs that he used to, and Carsley was the first person to put in the back of my shirt. So clearly, I think of having someone like him sit in front of a back four. Do we think we go back to a Moyes style? Would you prefer to have a 4-4-2 or something closer to what we had today with some improvements?
Well, I think there's caveats in every sort of decision and avenue, and I think every decision has a knock-on effect of each other. So I think you'd like Patterson, you do want him where he is there, and you can see in his heat map, he's got a bit more energy about him. He's got a bit more dynamism when he's attacking down that wing. You don't really want him constantly sitting there in a Dyche back four like it was, and just being that stable right back. That's not his game. If you're going to use him, you want to use him like you did today. But the caveat to that, to me, is it becomes a bit more frantic. And I think you've got like Michael Keane or Tarkowski in that centre of the back line. How many times is the opposition going to play a ball in behind the channel and isolate themselves 1v1 with Keane or Tarkowski, and we're going to get done on that counter attack? That's how I see the problems coming from. So
it's the third centre back, not the matter of the straight at the back.
Yeah, I think it's the personnel. I think if you're going to play that high press, you play your defenders naturally have to step up the pitch. So they have to have pace. They have to be aggressive. Look at the likes of Aston Villa with Konza, big defenders who are quick. Liverpool have been doing it for years. City have done it. All the teams who play the high press, Chelsea have got young, fast defenders. They play with the speedy defenders, but when you play with slow defenders, not that Branthwaite or
O'Brien,
Arslow, they're quite quick for centre backs. But I think it could create some problems.
With respect, Basil, I look at that and I think, if you've got O'Brien and Branthwaite in there, you've got two quick centre halves and one slow one. I would much rather be in a situation where you had two quick centre halves on each side and one slow one in the middle, because I get what you're worried about in terms of Keane or Tarkowski being too slow. And I agree with you, but one thing that you really get from them that you really need, in my opinion, at least, is, well, probably less from Keane, more from Tarkowski, a good penalty box defender. The reason why I would prefer playing with the back three is because I believe it allows us to push higher up the pitch. Because let's be honest, mate, we don't score goals enough, but it's not because our players are crap, like everyone keeps suggesting. Like, I have to be honest, when people start blaming the players, it frustrates me because, and I'm gonna do what David B asked in the comments. He asked us to comment on Njai. Njai is a very strong, penetrating runner with the ball. Always beats defenders, rides challenges brilliantly, really good in the way he dribbles with the ball. Now, the problem we had with him under Dyche is he's starting and he's picking up the ball too deep. If he's picking up the ball in the opposition's final third, there's more chance he could create something. He can't create shit all if he's basically starting with the ball 60 yards away from the opposition box, because he has to run a great distance. And by the time he gets up to the opposition box, he's run out of breath. There's nothing he can do to create any chances. So for me, that's why I would prefer the back three, because there's more chance of us going forward and scoring goals. And with Branthwaite and O'Brien, I believe there's a reduced risk of being caught on the counter-attack with the two of them playing, because at least if they stay in the back line and the back line pushes up at a level position rather than one of them pushing out too far ahead, then you've got a balance in there. So if they don't catch the opposition offside, the least they can do is make a recovery run. But if I'm being honest, mate, the one thing I feel that you're forgetting about that could remedy that situation about slow centre-half and getting caught 1v1 is Jordan Pickford. Because for me, mate, when it comes to goalkeepers in this league, if you were to ask me who's the best goalkeeper in terms of 1v1 situations, I would have to say Jordan Pickford. Because if I could rank all the goalkeepers in the world right now, Jordan Pickford does make the top five, mate. If you were to ask me who I think the best keeper in the world is, I'd probably have to go with David Raya from Arsenal. His footwork leaves little to be desired, but when it comes to shot stopping, agility, reactions, hand-eye coordination, Raya is by far miles ahead.
From Villa. He can
no, I hate him. I hate him, mate.
I can hate him, but I think he can do good. You can hate him and he makes good saves.
He's a goalkeeping mope. He's a goalkeeping mope. He's a twat. I don't like him one bit. He can fuck off. He's not on that list. Donnarumma, I would say, goes on that list as well. I think he's probably second in the ranking. Donnarumma is a very good goalkeeper. Another goalkeeper who I think goes on that, who probably doesn't get the credit he deserves, who should go on that list, is Jan Oblak. I think Jan Oblak doesn't get credit that he deserves because he's a very, very good goalkeeper. Makes a lot of impact in the Euros when he plays for, is it Slovenia? I think he's Slovenian, isn't he? But he makes a big impact. Oh no, he's Czech Republic, isn't he? I forgot. But yeah, he makes an impact. And the other goalkeeper is it? How do you pronounce his name? Is it Simeon or something from Athletic Bilbao? The one who played for Spain in the Euros. I think he's quite a good goalkeeper as well. But I can see Richo in the comments there has said Sarr from Wolves. Mate, I think he goes bottom of the list of all goalkeepers. he is appalling.
He's like Tarkowski. He's lost a few steps.
On Tarkowski, I think to try and sort of play down the Tarkowski criticism a little bit. If he is playing with an injury, then he shouldn't be playing at all, because the last thing you want in your back line is a defender playing with a serious injury. If that's been hindering his performances, then I think it's probably time we gave him a bit of time off to recover from that. I would much rather we, if we have to stick with Keane, yes, it's worrying, but as I say, Jordan Pickford could slightly remedy the situation. As long as we start pushing opposition teams back and giving him less work to do, I do believe that there's a chance we could start picking up better results.
So we'll circle back to your point. Sorry, Basil, but yeah. So what we're really saying here is, if we have three at the back and one of them happens to be slow, and you have a fast keeper, then does it really matter that Keane or Tarkowski are slow? Or you could say, if Keane is going to be less of a liability because you trust in O'Brien and Branthwaite, have Keane kind of progress through the middle because he's quite good by foot for distribution, and then that allows for Mangala and Garnegay to bomb on. But I'll go back to Basil.
I think that would work in a lot of cases. In a lot of games, your keeper could play quite a crucial role, but particularly the lower league opposition. I just think against your bigger opposition, and Peter, I'll give you a chance to come back if you want to on how you would play against the bigger opposition, so to speak. But you got the likes of, I don't know, the teams with fast transition attackers. Newcastle, Liverpool, City,
Wolves,
maybe not City. These sorts of teams which will try and hit you quick, or when you don't have the ball and you're getting dragged and it becomes a back five. How do you work then? But one other thing I wanted to just mention with Undai, I agree. I want him higher up, and I hate when he gets the ball and he feels like he has to beat six men. I don't want him to beat anyone. I just want him to pass it off and move it forward. He dribbles when it's the wrong time. He's an excellent player, but he needs to be high up the pitch. What you see in that first half today is Beto isolated against the back 3 or 5, whatever you want to call it. But the players around him just didn't support him. They didn't make overlapping runs. Undai was nowhere near him. Harrison Armstrong tried to get close to him, but a lot of the time he's isolated. And Undai can't help himself. He comes short. He looks for the ball. He wants to be involved. How do you tell him? Do you tell him with the manager has to say then to him that our tactics is I want you to stay up. You're gonna help the striker. You're gonna link up, stay close to him, win the knockoffs. Is that what you say to him? Is that the target? And you hope he just follows those instructions.
Yeah, but I also wouldn't just overplay with the knock-ons and the long ball. For me, I'd rather see us playing out from the back. The thing is about the long ball, mate. And look, we can debate all this, but I think, truthfully, the whole thing about playing the long ball and going for the knock-ons, you're never going to get onto them all the time. It's always 50-50. If the opposition have got a big centre-half and he can see the ball coming and he can see your striker and he's got the momentum to come forward onto it while your striker is backpedaling, trying to figure out where it's going to land, chances are, mate, you're not even going to win the ball. So for me, I don't want to overcompensate the Route 1 football. I would only want to go long if we're going to get something from it. If the opposition are pressing really high up the pitch in numbers, say if the centre-halves are on the halfway line and it's Pickford's goal kick or something, then I would go long ball, because then you've got 50 yards of space between them and the goalkeeper. But no team is daft enough to do that. But at the same time, I don't want to overcompensate, because most of the time, all I see in Route 1 is us giving the other team the ball back, and I hate that. That really irritates me when we just give the other team the ball back. But like I say, can I just respond to Gang One's comment there, mate?
Sure.
If you bring that up, mate, I strongly disagree. If not for him, we would have been relegated 3 times on the trot now. That man has saved us on multiple occasions. Look at the amount of clean sheets we've kept. Majority of it is, look at his saves to goals ratio in terms of the games we have been playing. Look at the amount of saves he has made in the majority of games that have kept us in clean sheets. Look at the big saves. Let me tell you something, mate. You put someone else in goal against Arsenal in that 0-0 draw at the Emirates for that chance that Saka had at the very start of the second half. That's in. Nobody but Pickford saves that. That was one of the best saves I've seen him make all season, without question. That was unbelievable. I don't think anyone else is saving that, to be honest with you. That's me being honest.
Because so Peter, I would worry about the troll under the bridge of Gang One.
I can't see how
trolling you, I'm sure.
Yeah, I can't see how
Pickford is not terrible. He's the reason we've stayed up. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Do we think that the long ball situation? I agree. I don't want to see the long balls as much. It really hasn't worked that well of late. The quality of the long balls has been off a lot of the time. There doesn't seem to be a tactic with the long balls. That's where I get frustrated. It's not let's play long balls out to the wings and win headers and get throw-ins like Moyes used to do. It's not let's play it right down the centre and win the flick-ons and get tight in. Our long balls, we almost set up like a possession-based team with no ability to play in possession and then play long balls. That's not an effective strategy by any means. But what I want to ask is about the striker situation, because for me, Calvert-Lewin, he's not the Calvert-Lewin of 3 years. We know that he back in the day, in his peak of powers, he was strong and he would bully the defenders a lot of the time, and he would win headers and win and get that ball across. He doesn't seem capable of doing that for whatever reason at the moment, whether his head's not in it or whatever, but that's not working. He's out at the moment. Beto's better at playing in behind, personally, that I feel. I don't think he's good at winning the ball from long balls. It has to go over the top or through balls on the ground. And Brozier's out. I think Brozier's probably of the three, the most all-rounded, the one who could play the little 1-2s and the flick-ons, win the ball and be strong. But he's injured and he's barely played a minute for us. He's probably going to not play much this season. So where do you go there? Which of those strikers do you use? Or are you expecting we're going to sign someone play a completely different tactic?
I'm expecting to see different things under the tactics. You see, the thing is, mate, we can debate all day long about who should play up front for us, but the truth is, mate, what we've been watching for so long under Sean Dyche, mate, I'm sorry to say it this way, but it didn't matter who played up front for us under Dyche. We were never scoring under Sean Dyche, no matter who played up front. You could put DCL, Beto, Chimiti, Broja. You could put Mope up front and we'd never score. It doesn't matter.
Erling Haaland couldn't score either.
You could play Haaland. You could play Erling Haaland in that team. In fact, to sum it up better than that, you could exchange this entire squad with all of City's title-winning team. And I guarantee you now, we'd still be in the exact same position under Sean Dyche's management. We would not be anywhere near the top of the table with that entire City team under Sean Dyche's management. It doesn't matter who plays up front for you under Sean Dyche. You're never going to score because he doesn't get the ball up high enough and he doesn't break teams down because he doesn't set up to do it. I mean, when you sum it up, mate, when I heard all his coaching staff that went with him, Ian Wone and all them, I was chuffed because I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, these fellas all working with them on the training ground. If you look back at their history in terms of when they were players, they were all centre backs, mate. So it's a no wonder they couldn't teach teams how to break teams down. They weren't just any centre backs either. They were like Route 1 centre backs, like Sunday League style centre halves.
Yeah, Tarkovsky will join them when he retires and part of the coaching squad. I'm sure he would fit in with that squad. He just had to shave his head. That's all. So
a different manager is all we needed, really. I think a different manager is going to improve some of these strikers. Look at Beto there tonight. I'll be honest, mate, I didn't know he had that composure. The way he just got that, he timed his run perfectly to stay on side, dribbled round the goalkeeper and tapped that in. I'm looking and I'm thinking, I didn't know he had that in him. I've never seen that kind of composure from Beto before. And suddenly it's just coming out of nowhere. I mean, as he's never played under any other. Well, he's never played under any other manager at this club other than Dyche. So it doesn't surprise me that now suddenly we're starting to see something coming out of the ashes from Beto. We're starting to see like a bit of composure.
I take all your points, but I at the end of the day, today's team was picked by Dyche. The formation was picked by Dyche.
Mate, I don't believe that.
But the strategy...
I genuinely... Mate, I think that's bullshit. I think that's just some kind of media frenzy. Someone has obviously cooked that up to try and chuff up the Dyche apologists. I don't buy it for 1 second.
But unless he's done that
and even if they did...
Baines...
I don't see how that team could have been picked by Dyche if it's not playing 11 men behind the ball, mate. And plus,
he sometimes does these knee-jerk reactions.
You're putting too much on Dyche, personally. I feel like the players, at the end of the day, the players go out there, the players play the thing. Yeah, I know Dyche is dinosaur tactics, very defensive, very little is done in an attacking sense. But at the end of the day, the players are the players, and they went out today and they played. There was that one moment of quality where he played the through ball through. That could have happened in any other game. I don't understand how you feel like that.
Don't discredit, as I've said in the comments, don't discredit Peterborough, because to tell you the truth, mate, they didn't play hoofball against us. They were playing some good stuff. They were playing some good stuff. They were setting up a solid team, a solid mid-block. They weren't making it easy for us to break them down. So at the end of the day, as much as you want to look at our team and say, oh, they should be doing this or doing that, don't take anything away from Peterborough for the way they defended against us. I thought they were doing all right in terms of the way they were trying to, stop us from breaking them down. Let's be honest, they're a League One club playing against the Premier League club. They're not going to come to Goodison Park and just, try and push everything up and say, let's try and, go all out attack against Everton. No, they're going to try and play a bit of a decent, composed defensive shape. And then when they've got the ball, they tried to break us down. They didn't just hoof it away and give it back to us. They tried to break us down with playing out from the back. I thought they did really well, Peterborough, and I think that you'd have to give them some credit. In terms of the players today, I thought our players did all right. I thought they were passing around the back well, building up well. The final ball leaves little to be desired, I admit, but at the end of the day, mate, it's not that easy when the team are playing full defensive and stopping you from breaking them down. I mean, look at how many fouls they committed and got away with. Look, I mean, that corner, I don't know why we had Idrissa Gueye taking corners in the first half anyway, by the way, but I thought one of the first corners we had in the first half, Jake O'Brien was on the far post waiting to get an head on that, and he had his shirt pulled. The referee never even saw it, mate. You could clearly see he was having his shirt pulled. It's not easy.
Is there VAR at this level of the FA Cup, by the way, Peter? I don't know. Do they call VAR?
I don't think they do. No, I don't think they do VAR at this level for some reason. I don't know what that was about, but they should have been having
and
VAR.
Availability of resources, I bet.
Yeah. But either way, I do think that under the new manager, I agree that the players have to do better. Listen, no one's saying these players are spectacular because they're not. They're not. I mean, I don't think they're not. They're definitely not players who are going to compete for Europe by a long stretch. There's probably one or two in there, maybe more, who you might look at and say they could get into a team that could compete for Europe. But there's a few you might look at and think, nah, I don't think there's. I really don't think there's much in them. But this team can do better than what it's been doing under Dyche. This team should not be battling relegation. Let me ask you this, mate. If we hadn't had that points deduction, as all the Dyche apologists seem to want to point out to me every time I've been saying Dyche out, they think that man could have achieved 12th without that points deduction, which, if you look at it, it's a fact. But if I'm being honest, mate, 10-point deduction or not, having 10 points deducted, 6 points deducted, it's not a player reduction. It's not injuries. We still didn't get results under Dyche's management in that season when we had the points deducted. But we could have finished 12th, as all these people likely point out. Now, on the back of that, if we could have finished 12th and we sell Onana for 50 million, Dobbin for 10 million, and Godfrey for however much it was, we haven't really lost much when you think about it. So, summer we bring in Iliman and Jai, massive improvements on what we had up front last season, if you ask me. Under any stretch, any player in the final third we had last season, he's a massive improvement. Jesper Lindstrom looks like a creative player. Mangala seems to have replaced Onana's position pretty well. Jake O'Brien could have easily filled in a gap for Godfrey, no problem. So what are we really missing that suddenly makes Dyche think that we can go from finishing 12th without a points deduction to suddenly be in a relegation scrapping side? I'm sorry, mate, but Dyche completely downgraded us when he was supposed to have made slight improvements. That man is delusional. I mean, look at what he said before the Brentford game. People say his press conferences are what's got him sacked. But when you look at it, look at what he's been saying in his press conferences. For example, look at before the Brentford game. There's no evidence that Njai can play in the number 10 role. You have to be able to defend to play in that role as well. And Dwight McNeil has proven he can do that. While at the time of him saying that, Iliman Njai's individual stats showed that he'd done more defending than Dwight McNeil and more successful defending than Dwight McNeil in less game time. So Dyche clearly had that backwards, if you ask me. So for me, the whole thing is Dyche was completely getting it all wrong, couldn't balance the team out. No one thinks this team is spectacular, but if you balance it out, I think there's more chance of getting forwards and getting more goals. I definitely think we would get more chances going forward.
So I want to loop back to one of the key points I think we brought up, because we went in a few different directions, Peter. At the end, it was a lot of, okay, do we trust the quality of the squad? No. Do we think that Dyche is responsible for all of our poor performance? No. Responsible for a lot? Yes. Relatively speaking, in my view, we had a similar base last year. We lost Godfrey, but outside of that, we've added Iliman and Jai and Jake O'Brien, and some of the key cogs that got results at the end of last season. Gueye was pivotal, I think, at the end for doing little things that got results, like the goal against Brentford on a 1-0, and all of a sudden he's taken a nosedive. So you have these players that are getting older, but we also have brought in some young players that seem to be what we want to see with the Element and Jais, but we aren't getting the results. So clearly Dyche has to be held accountable. He's fired. Now the next question says, we don't know who's coming in. We've got a whole show on that, so we're not going to go full on a description there. What I think was really key on this session is we went from doing only long ball, where you have an isolated striker. It's either Beto, it's Brozier, who's or DCL, or occasionally Yusuf Chimiti, who are basically sitting there stationary or trying with knowing a long ball's going to come to them, either underhit or overhit, and they're not sure what to do with it. Defensively, it's really easy to handle a long ball if you're expected it to come. If you're doing short balls and you're pressing in, and all of a sudden, occasionally a long ball goes over, it breaks up your line, and there's a well-timed run. It's a lot harder to defend, and all of a sudden, it's easier to be a striker. So now that we're doing short passes and the teams are trying to press us in instead of just waiting for us to hoof it back to them, it's more challenging to defend that if we have a mixture of long ball, but it's not just a through ball. Sometimes it's a through ball on the ground. Sometimes it's a long diagonal. Now we have an opportunity to kind of shake things up. We have a wing back potentially in Patterson who's going to bomb on and be more effective than we've seen from the likes of, Njai on the left or Patterson on the right. Outside of that, I haven't seen menace on the wings. So now the real question becomes, cool, we either play 4 at the back, as we've said, or 5 at the back. We're going to try and maybe not just do hoofball anymore, and we need strikers to boot to be able to convert these chances. Beto is in there today. Brozier potentially is out for a while. We don't know yet. But that injury, because it wasn't a contact injury, if it's a fibula or whatever injury, that could be horrible. So maybe he's out and he's just not coming back. DCL's injured. Now we've got Beto. That's our only striker. How do we manage, or what's our strategy to scoring goals? Is it replicating what we did today and hopefully Beto plays 90 minutes every match?
Well, I'd like to mention something tactically. Before I do, want to respond to Gang One's comment there. He said throw Peter in goal. Mate, just to clarify, if I seem cagey or aggressive or a little bit pissed off, right? I don't know if you remember, Chris, but you remember when I mentioned that I got hurt? I was a couple of months ago in October. I was playing in goal and I had my head cracked open like an egg. You can see a big scar there.
Oh, by this. Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
I took a knee from a Muay Thai kickboxer and it hurt like fucking hell. And I was waiting in hospital for ages to get sutured up. Fucking nightmare. So I'm back to playing in goal. So I'll go in goal happily, mate. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
But thanks for suggesting me, by the way, for goalkeeper. I'll happily take that role.
You get paid a lot to occasionally show up or be on the bench. You could be on the bench and never play and get paid well at Everton. There's always two spots, isn't there?
We play 2 keepers on the bench on a regular basis, don't we? You could just get paid to sit on the bench. Yeah, I'd happily take that role. No problem, mate. I'll take the second goalkeeper on the bench. Now, but going into a tactical discussion here, in terms of the tactical setup and whatnot, defensively, how we would operate with the 3 at the back. I mean, honestly, mate, I couldn't care less whether it's low block or mid block. I think one of the biggest advantages of the mid block is if a team is not going to play the ball over the top, a team might catch us out playing mid block. So low block might make sense, but if we push high, just leave it to the attackers to push high. But the best thing about the back 3 is you've got left, right, and centre covered. Plus, if you've got a defensive midfielder dropping deep to sort of cover any ground for someone who might come short to show for the ball, it kind of helps with the situation. But the low block, mid block doesn't matter to me as long as it's against the right team. It should depend on the opposition. How good are the opposition? Can they break it down? Do they play route 1? What's their biggest strength? You know what I mean? It should really depend on that.
In terms of what pace we do of their defenders too.
In terms of what we do,
high block, they better be a pacey set of centre halves because you need to get that edge on them.
Yeah. In terms of what we do with the strikers, in all honesty, mate, if we have to throw Illiman and Jai as like up front as the striker, I've got nothing against, say, Harrison Armstrong coming on to play the role he did from the bench. I've also got nothing against. One thing I would say, mate, Jack Harrison today showed a little bit of technical quality, But for me, again, the one thing I've always been saying about him, I don't rate him that highly as a player, if I'm being honest. But one thing that's really frustrated me watching him play under Sean Dyche is he's always played him on the right. When Harrison was playing his best football,
left-footed player.
When Harrison was playing his best football for Leeds under Bielsa, he was playing on the left. I don't understand why Sean Dyche didn't take any note of that. But like I say, it's just one of them things. I think Harrison would be better off playing on the left than on the right. People say that Dwight McNeil should play on the right. I'm not too sure, but I'm not overly against it. I mean, if he's cutting inside on that left foot, the one problem you've got is he's always going to have to cut inside to try and put a cross in because he can't cross with his right foot. You know what I mean? He's better off being, the thing about Dwight McNeil that's really frustrating to watch, especially when he under Dyche's management. He's like the player who only turns up once in every 10 games. Like he'll turn up.
When he does, he scores.
Yeah, when he does, he scores or gets an assist. And that's
like Decore too, unfortunately.
No, Decore's gone massively south now. I think it's mainly because he's taken that injury. Nothing to do with him bad as a player. I feel like the injuries just crippled him. He's lost his legs now because of his injury from last season. I just don't think he's recovered.
Yeah, and I think he has just legs must be a Jack Harrison reference because Abdoulaye Doucouré has legs. They just don't work as well as they used to. But there's a few of these players that we have, and it's part of the frustrating part, I think, Peter. We have the likes of Dwight McNeil or Abdoulaye Doucouré who are put in these roles because occasionally they can put a spark, but when they're not providing a spark, what's their flaw? And the flaw has a lot of holes in it. And that's, I think, part of why we have Abdoulaye Doucouré in that role but he can give away goals, So one of your ideas, Peter, which sounds interesting, is bringing Iliman Ndiaye into a false nine role, and then what you'd really want is some pace on the wings to basically be able to come in and behind if Ndiaye is playing short and trying to turn a centre half. Maybe but that's not going to be the likes of Dwight McNeil. He's not fast enough. So then really you're asking for the likes of Lindstrom and Jack Harrison to be those players. I think that fits part of what you're saying. For Basil, does that work for you? Or do you think we have to just rely on Beto being route one until we can get someone else in?
It's interesting. It's an interesting point. It's an interesting idea. Whether I think it's going to work, no, I don't. My gut reaction is I don't think it's going to work.
Against low block teams, it won't work, will it? I think I see what you're saying there. Like against low block teams, you might struggle to get that kind of thing happening because where's the space in behind if they're playing low block?
Yeah, you're basically running into the centre half, and you're like, okay, cool. The run was pointless.
Maybe you're right though about mixing it up.
Yeah, I think I don't see it working because I don't think we're Barcelona. That's my gut feeling when I think of that formation. I feel like I feel like I've got my little intricate ball players all around the striking positions. Get them all tight and around each other, play the 1-2s. I just don't see Everton having these players. And Dye's great. But can he play that lone striker? Could he play that false nine with players around him? I don't know. It's worth thinking about, but for me it would be Beto for now because Beto's the only one who's fit, and I would look to play through balls. But then I'm looking at where's my quality coming from the through balls? Who's going to play those through balls well? We sold Iwobi. Garner's injured. Decore's not capable of playing them. So Harrison Armstrong got one through today. Can he do that consistently? Maybe he can. Maybe he is a really good player. He's got a lot of good him. But I just see holes in every system, and that's because we're not a complete squad. We're a mishmash squad, and we know that we're in the position we are at. We do have financial difficulties. We got to work with what we have. There's ways of doing it. There's different ways of doing it. You can argue it all day long, can't we? But the main thing is we needed a change. I do agree we needed to change because it went stale. But I also don't have perhaps the optimism that Peter has, or maybe you have, even Aussie Chris, because I just seen these players for so long, and I've seen them try to do different things, and I just think there's gaps and there's so many incapable players.
We can be pessimistic, but it's a positive day. We got to win. Dyche is gone.
Yeah. Can I just add though? I mean, in terms of the false nine role, I mean, if you've got wide players running in behind and everything, doesn't always have to be the wide players, mate. If you've got like wing backs and you've got them bombing forward too in the wide areas. I mean, you look at some of those through balls today out to the wide areas. There was one that got put through to Patterson, and Patterson I thought put a good cross into Beto when Beto got the header away, but the keeper saved it. To be fair, it was a header on target as well, so you had that come from it. You also had incidents like where Patterson he nutmegged the fullback who basically came in to close him down, and he got in behind and tried to cut that one back, but it didn't lead to anything. Like I say, I thought today Patterson showed that he should have been starting over Ashley Young, because I think there was clear proof of how good Patterson really is and how much he adds to us going forward. And I think you play a back three and you play Patterson as the right wing back. The big thing I think about playing Patterson as the right wing back is you've got to put O'Brien in behind him, because I thought today what you saw was a confident Patterson. He wasn't worried about what was behind him. You play him in a back four, he's got to worry about what's behind him, because you saw that at Bournemouth. At Bournemouth, he was watching his man, but then Tarkowski is out of position and he only just notices that. And he tries to cover Tarkowski and get up and try to win the header. Doesn't win the header because he's going up at the last minute. And then Tarkowski doesn't make the recovery run after Patterson's tried to cover him. So he's got to worry about what's behind him in a back four. But in a back three, he hasn't got to worry about what's behind him. So O'Brien covers that gap. And you look at the heat map, I think that pretty much shows.
Yep, that's
O'Brien
exactly what I was showing.
Yeah, O'Brien doesn't
He's
get
covering
forward.
the entire flank there. The entire time
he
he's basically playing a right back.
Yeah, he's got the pace. It's like this is kind of what I thought Godfrey should have been doing under any other manager. I thought that Godfrey should have been the right centre half in a back three that covers the fullback, because the thing about Godfrey, he's not that good in the air, mate. But when it comes to making last-ditch tackles, he is significantly good. But now he's gone. Someone said they've heard about Godfrey being linked with the Premier League. I don't know if this is true, but I believe he's gone on loan to Ipswich.
Yeah,
I've heard that too. Yep.
Yeah, I think he's gone on loan to Ipswich.
He
wanted to get out.
I don't want Godfrey back, because forget Godfrey, he's gone. We've got O'Brien now, and if you ask me, O'Brien's a big improvement on Godfrey, because he's good in the air, 6'6", and he's quite quick for his size. And when you look at his heat map, I think it pretty much covers what I've been saying there. Is like it allows Patterson to get forward and not worry about what's behind him because of O'Brien in there. So that's one advantage. I do think that Mykolenko needs to be improved upon, because in terms of build-up play, he's fine. But when it comes to the final ball, mate, sorry, he's not good enough. He's just not got that composure to get crosses in or get shots away. Not like what Patterson does, because Patterson showed, from a technical standpoint, some real quality today. And I think that he's proven himself significantly, in that the next manager who comes in needs to start him. Because if the next manager doesn't start him, mate, I'm going to blow me top. I do not want to see Ashley Young in that position again.
No.
At all. I wouldn't mind seeing Ashley Young at left wing back maybe, but
that's
even
what I
then,
to see today.
It didn't happen, but at least we got the result. You know what I mean? When you think about it, though, if you bring up that heat map again, you see Mykolenko was kind of like more defensive. To be fair, mate, that's kind of his strength. I mean, I mentioned Maurizio Sarri before as a potential candidate for the manager, but I don't think he'll take the job. Not sure if I'd take him anyway, but like I say, Mykolenko was more defensive. That kind of reminds me of Maurizio Sarri when he was at Chelsea, because what he used to do was he had Azpilicueta as like a right back, but he was kind of making him sit deep, but he was having the left back push on. I don't know who the left back was. I think it was either Ben Chilwell or it was Marcus Alonso, but he was having him bomb forwards and try and create chances from the left-hand side. And that was the thing about Chelsea under Sarri. They had that sort of thing. And I think maybe for us, we play a back three. That kind of effort might work with Mykolenko in the team. But personally, I would rather see Ashley Young, so that you can kind of double up on both flanks of attack, and you have the cover in behind with Branthwaite and O'Brien in the back three.
Yeah, and I think with a lot of this, it's match number 1. It's exciting, but the only way to really know is we have to give it a week. We have to see what happens against Premier League opposition, and if it was truly Dyche deciding on this formation, is that what Baines, Coleman, and or permanent replacement would do. I think we're probably about to close up, Peter, and really thank you for joining on. Looks like Ryan's might kick on for a second to say hello, and then we might be doing a closeout here. Ryan, hello.
Hello. Thank you for joining, Peter. Much appreciated.
No problem.
Thanks, mate. Good night.
Right.
Hi, boys. You okay?
Yeah. You've been requested to talk about your displeasure of Mikolenko as the key member of the Follow Everton channel here. So, how did you?
He didn't look out of place against League One players. I think that's about his level. Every time he got the ball down the left, it was like a blunt instrument that you couldn't sharpen. Wanted to play the ball back inside to Garner Gay, who then wanted to play back to the static 3 central defenders. Listen, you can't be too critical of Baines because I love him. He's my favourite Everton player of my generation in 31 years. He's my favourite player. But I wasn't enjoying watching that match. 5 statues and the defence with Patterson occasionally roaming forward, playing a lot of sideways passes. And I think he needed to say to them, look, if you're the sided central defender, you've got to step forward and create an angle, a passing angle. You've got to join the attack because we only got 2 midfielders, and then we were asking Ndai to basically cover the left wing, but also sort of tuck in and play between the lines and also get close to the striker. It wasn't good, I'll be honest. It was horrible.
And you were there in the cold.
It's like going from one extreme to another. So we've gone from every pass being a long ball to every pass being a sideways short ball. And the one time we played forward, we scored. We played a through ball, but they were few and far between.
I just think I knew you would have this view, Ryan. I could picture it exactly like that. I just think like when Everton played Man City a few weeks ago, we had the one chance and we scored from it. It was a really good goal. And I think it was just a freak little moment where Everton showed a little bit of quality. Again tonight, that was the one and only real bit of quality that came through in a nice finish.
I mean, Mangala did hit the bar. I thought that was a pretty good strike.
He also scuffed a shot on the edge of the thing that was quite a good opportunity. Everton players are hit and miss, but I think if you do a running commentary of the game, a lot of it would be Keane passes it out and left. It's Branthwaite turns back inside, passes it back to Keane. Gay comes forward, where he gives it to Gay. Gay back to Keane, goes out wide. Patterson has it. Patterson is gone out for a throw, and you could probably play that on repeat the whole game, and that's how I watched the game. But yeah, I know there were moments of quality. We've discussed it, but Ryan, that's how I saw it, and that's how I feel like you saw it.
I was there and I was sat on the end. I wasn't sat on the touchline view. I was sat in the park end. So to me, it was sideways, sideways, sideways. It was like a game of checkers. But I didn't really feel like we were going anywhere. I didn't really. I felt like every time it went to the wings, it would be 2v3 Peterborough players, 2 Everton and 3 Peterborough, or 3 Everton and 4 Peterborough. We never had a numerical advantage anywhere to really just play triangles around. We didn't play good football. The set pieces were horrific. We had Garner Gay taking lofted. Every single person who took a set piece was technically poor, which just shows the standard of the players on the ball. They're all technically very poor. Set pieces were poor. We were poor on the ball. Listen, I'm not. People in the comments are saying Rome was not built. You've asked me to come on and comment on the match. I'm commenting on what I saw. I'm doing it without the context.
Was it better than Dyche playing? Would you prefer what we saw today than if Dyche was in charge?
Yeah, but mate, come on, we're playing fucking Peterborough. They're in bottom of League One. They're utter dross. Every time they got the ball, they shit their kecks and they needed the nappies changing. They were rubbish, but they were very well organised. To be fair, actually, they had one very good player, the left winger who came on, who made Ashley Young look like a 12-year-old coming in. He looked younger than his own son because he was brilliant. That little kid who come on who was tearing Ashley Young to shreds. But I was sat there, I was ashamed. Thought these players are so shit. They couldn't break sand. Them lot. They couldn't break up a bunch of sand. They just It's a bad analogy, but I think you know what I'm trying to say.
Actually, I wonder if Peter Collins actually mistyped this and he meant to say Roma wasn't built in a day, Ryan.
I'm not celebrating that. I thought it was at 1-0 at home to Peterborough. You're kidding me.
It was 2-0. You left early.
I know it was 2-0. No, I saw that. I left after that pen, but we didn't create many chances. We didn't cut them open. I didn't think we had many ideas. Listen, the problem is Baines. There's nothing. That was a Sean Dyche team, and that was Sean Dyche's team that he picked. They were his tactics. He did all the preparation. That was a Sean Dyche game. You've asked me to come on, give me my opinion of that match. I'm telling you what it was. It was sideways. Patterson would get forward occasionally. He was very good going forward. He wasn't very good at defending. On the other side, you might as well put my 96-year-old grandma on the left back, because all Mikalenko did was kind of, I'm going to step forward. I'm going to then pass it back into the middle. And we're going to keep feeding it over to the way. Offered absolutely diddly squat. And what became very quickly apparent was they haven't played that system before. The two-sided centre-backs, O'Brien and Branthwaite, have got to step into midfield. They've got to be prepared to create that angle, because it was like 5 statues. It was like Sabutio. It was like they're in a line. We needed another man going into that midfield to go and hound them and get the ball back off them and be prepared when we've got possession to go forward with it, because it was negative in a different way, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I agree. And you get Branthwaite stepping up, and it allows Mangala, for example, to then push on and support the striker, and everyone pushes on together. If your 3 centre-backs are just stood in a line across the back line, as the positions showed on the average positions, you're not progressing. You're all statuesque.
What I would say is the back 3 has got to be a back 3. When it becomes a back 5 and you pin back, at times, I'm sorry, it was a 5-4-1. I was looking at and thinking, we're playing 5-4-1 against Peterborough.
And we're trying to break down a Peterborough side, Yeah,
but Peterborough made the bottom of League 1.
I didn't say that we should play back 5, but we did.
Yeah,
you taking the fact
it became
that
a back
defense.
5. It became a back 5. I think Jake O'Brien and Branthwaite are comfortable on the ball enough to play in a back 5. But the problem is, I think we all need to come to the conclusion that probably it doesn't matter who we get in. We could have I don't know. I'm looking for a really good analogy of, we could have Harry Potter in there working some magic. Not for Graham Potter. It wouldn't make a difference.
Not Keane Lewis either.
It wouldn't make a difference who we've got, because I actually think technically those players are not very good. 1 to 11 on that pitch, apart from Ndai. Technically, they were at the level of Peterborough, who were a League One team. Garner Gay showed a little bit of class, and Mangala showed a little bit of class at times, without offering anything in the final third. But technically, they aren't very good. And then the problem is,
Everton, Ryan.
The problem is, Chris, Pete, and I was saying to my partner who was at the match with you, physically, tactically, and technically are the 3 things that make you a good football team. Mm-hmm. Physically, you can match a Premier League in League One if they've got the fitness regimes in place and they are following. They can do a Premier League fitness in League One. You can be physically as strong as a Premier League player. And I thought physically that was evident with some of the Peterborough centre-backs who made it very difficult for Beto, for example, who didn't get any change. He got 2 pence, although he did score. That was the one penetrating pass. What I'm saying, physically, Peterborough matched us. So then you look for the other elements of how we can be better than them. Well, tactically, I'm not sure we were. That was evident because we didn't have the 5 at the back. We didn't know how to break the team down. We haven't played that system before. It's not a slight on Leighton Baines. He's had no time whatsoever to work with the players. He'll have just said, look, that's the team, but I actually don't want you to hoof it. I want you to play a bit of football, go out and try and do something. And then the fine thing is technically we weren't any better than Peterborough. Even Martin Keown on commentary apparently was saying we look no better than Peterborough, League One team. So technically we're nowhere near. Tactically, where are we? And physically, we were at Peterborough's level. Mostly.
There's a 4th category, Ryan.
There's a 4th area. What is that?
Yep. The 4th area is the mentality. It's basically the mindset and the emotions and the mentality that puts all of those together. You can have all the tactics in the world and not trust it, not be willing to make a run, and all of a sudden your confidence drops, and you all of a sudden you can't make a good pass anymore. You're not willing to take a touch first on. So a lot of it, I think, is getting wins again, just to change and shake up. I'm not claiming it's going to make a massive change here, but even starting to get a few games of results and just a different feel around Goodison, I think I expect will make a difference. But are we good enough right now? No. Were we tactically inept? Yes. We had moments, mostly through Patterson and actually Armstrong. I was quite impressed with in little moments where he would sit back, think about how to pass a ball instead of, thinking about something isn't tactics. You're told to think about it. Yeah, well, that's still an individual decision. He seems to be able to slow down the game, and you don't see that a lot. So to me, that's the little things I'm looking for, and I try to take positives out of a very strange day. Maybe I'll ask this quickly. Yeah.
I know we're wrapping up. In the Premier League, we are going to struggle if we go with the 5 at the back system, because we haven't got anyone to break them down, play between the lines, and turn teams over and cutting edge. I'm really worried. I think the Brozier one's a big miss. I think Friedkins have taken action. I think there's going to be boys coming in, obviously, and I think we're going to have some money to spend. We'll go and get a number 9 as a priority. The worry is, can my manager, this is just a final note to leave on, can the manager we bring in improve us physically? Because I think physically we've been off it this season. Can he improve us tactically? Because tactically we've been inept in most matches. The last time I remember Everton being decent tactically was probably Merseyside derby, and we did the Dogs of War thing in those 3 matches at the consecutive games, and we didn't lose, but we never looked like scoring a goal. In Premier League, we should be competitive against anyone. It was possibly the Aston Villa Cup game, League Cup, and it looked like we had a real good plan, and we went because we'd lost to them, and then we went there in the League Cup and we beat them, and we were just all over them. And I thought we were brilliant. And I can't remember few and far between us actually being tactically superb. So can we be better tactically as well as physically? And then the final thing, the third thing is technically. I don't think technically you can make these better. I don't think you can give them a good touch. You can coach them to know the patterns of play and to get into the right areas. That's tactically. But
I think we're limited on that. We're limited technically.
I don't think Garner Gay's suddenly going to learn to cross the ball at 35 years of age. So I think he's limited with that unless he goes into the market. So if he can improve the tactics, the physicality and the mentality, like you said, which is obviously very negative and everyone's very reserved, then we'll be okay this season. But I think we need new players. I think there's a limit on what we're going to be able to do. But yeah, thanks for doing the stream. I was actually listening back whilst trying to build this TV unit. Add you onto the back.
Yeah. So I missed your other reaction, Ryan, but I woke up and I was like, I went to bed and Dyche got sacked in the 6 hours before, when I was waiting to see if the game would go live, and he gets sacked in the middle. It's been a weird day. How was it like at the stadium? Was there optimism or just kind of, I guess we're all here. It's going to be a shit 1-0 Grizzly cold night, but I guess we're here. I've got my season ticket. I'm an Everton fan. I'm going. It seemed almost like that.
Nobody wants to go before the match, before Dyche was gone, and then in the ground for a few moments when Baines and Coleman got announced as Everton, managers.
Interim.
It created a real buzz for about 35 seconds. And then the Peterborough fans took over. They were pretty disgusting, to be honest, the whole match. The full range of pathetic chants, which were quite embarrassing. You're going down, all this sort of stuff. Mate, you're fucking bottom of the league.
They're fucking going down, aren't they?
You're shite. You couldn't pass wind. They were garbage. They never looked like scoring. They could play every match. They could play every day and twice on a Sunday and still wouldn't get near our goal.
You know what's interesting, Ryan? Corey was telling me before the match they're the top scoring team in League One comfortably. So
to be fair, I could see it with that left winger. That left winger is like he'd get in our team.
Yeah, the one that Patterson dropped a shoulder into his chin and made him lose his shirt, and he was numberless the second half. That guy, silly and something. Yeah.
Listen, there was players tonight that showed the level. Jackie Harrison is a League One player. Decore is a League One player, although he played for 5 minutes. Mikolenko wouldn't look at a place in League One. Pato
Championship.
Yeah, Pato's probably upper Championship quality. He's not Prem for me. There's a whole host of them. You've got to make some sign. But the atmosphere after about 35 seconds, as I say, it was silent. It was just Peterborough, and you know what? We were just kind of like, come and entertain us, and it wasn't that entertaining. So you're just like, yeah, this is like watching paint dry, but it's also intriguing to see how we're going to break them down. So
now it'll be Aston Villa, and it'll be at home in about a week's time, if I remember correctly, is our next fixture. So we've got a week to see managerial replacements, see if Leighton Baines can teach Mikalenko how to cross, because he hasn't done so far, and see if we can actually put something together, because I don't see us winning.
I think we do need to wrap it up, let David go. I think he's got to go to work. Yep. But just on that, Chris, when we talked about technically Mikalenko might never be that player, but tactically, the angle of which he's crossing from, the area of which he's crossing from, and how he's crossing is something you can work from. If you're playing a stupid, shitty early ball level with the 18-yard line, that might be a harder technique to whip behind the defence and not overhit. Then
he is crossing it first time now.
Pulling it back.
Better.
Could he pull it back from closer to the goal? Could we get the crosses on the deck? Can we be a bit more clever? And that can come from the coaching. Anyway,
let's wrap up, because it's been an hour and 40 minutes on a live reaction. And this is show number 3 for me, so I'm pretty zonked. All right. Well, thanks for jumping on, and thank you for Peter for joining on as well. And until next time, up the toffees, eh?
And I'm going to listen back. Enjoy the toffees.
Up the toffees.
Enjoy the toffees. Don't enjoy them, just up